In today's world, everyone seems to think they're knowledgeable, right? I mean, with the internet at our fingertips, we can Google anything in seconds, whether it's figuring out how to fix a sink, learning about the stock market, or even diagnosing our own health symptoms. Information is everywhere. But here's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. There's a big difference between just having knowledge and actually being wise. Let me explain. Think of knowledge like having a huge collection of books or articles in your head. A knowledgeable person can tell you a lot about specific topics, maybe even go into deep detail on things like history, science, or technology. They know the facts. For example, let's say you meet someone who's a climate scientist. They could tell you all about the carbon cycle, the latest research on global warming, and the projected impacts on different ecosystems. That's super valuable knowledge, right? But wisdom, that's something entirely different. Wisdom isn't just about knowing stuff. It's about understanding how to use that knowledge in real life. It's more about judgment, insight, and experience. A wise person would not only understand the science of climate change, but would also know how to make decisions that help solve the problem in a practical, thoughtful way. They'd consider the ethical dimensions of it, how their actions impact the future, and maybe even how to communicate the importance of these changes to people who aren't on board yet. In our everyday lives, we see this difference all the time. Think about someone you know who's really book smart. Maybe they can ace every test and give you the lowdown on any subject you ask about. But are they always the person you go to for advice? Maybe not. Because while they know a lot, they may not always have the best judgment or be able to give you perspective on life's trickier problems. On the other hand, you might know someone who doesn't have a degree or fancy credentials, but seems to just get life. That's wisdom at work. Take, for instance, when you're at work. Let's say you have a boss who's super knowledgeable about the company. They know every statistic, every market trend, and all the ins and outs of how the business runs. But if they don't have wisdom, they might make decisions based on short-term gains without considering how those choices affect the team's morale or the company's long-term future. Now, contrast that with a leader who may not have all the technical details memorized, but they can motivate the team, anticipate market shifts, and make decisions that not only drive success, but also create a healthy work culture. The difference between those two, one is knowledgeable and the other is wise. This gap between knowledge and wisdom is even more apparent now in the information age. With social media and the internet, it's easy for people to confuse having access to information with being knowledgeable, and even further from being wise. Just because someone reads articles or watches YouTube videos doesn't mean they're an expert. And certainly, it doesn't mean they have the wisdom to use that knowledge effectively in real-life situations. Take social media, for example. Ever notice how people often think they know everything about a topic after reading one or two articles? Whether it's health, politics, or world events, people are quick to offer opinions and advice. But without understanding the complexities or thinking about the long-term effects of their opinions, they're just sharing surface-level knowledge. Wisdom, on the other hand, would be considering all sides, knowing when to speak up and when to stay quiet, and understanding the broader impact of their words or actions. One example that comes to mind is health advice on social media. We've all seen those posts where someone shares tips on how to lose weight or get fit quickly, based on a few things they've read online. Sure, they've gathered knowledge from different sources, but wisdom would tell them that people's bodies are different, and what works for one person might not work for another. A wise person would also realize that mental health is just as important as physical health, and that extreme measures might do more harm than good. Now, how do we actually become wiser in this world where information is so easy to access? That's the tricky part. Wisdom isn't something you can just Google. It's something that grows over time, through experience, reflection, and learning from our mistakes. You know how they say, hindsight is 20/20? That's wisdom in action, looking back at your decisions and seeing what worked, what didn't, and why. One way to develop wisdom is by listening to others, especially people with different perspectives from your own. It's easy to stay in your own bubble, only reading or watching content that confirms what you already believe. But wisdom comes from being open to different ideas, even those you might disagree with. It's about understanding that there's rarely a single right answer to most of life's complex problems. Another thing that helps develop wisdom is emotional intelligence. This is something that a lot of people don't consider when they think about wisdom. Emotional intelligence is about understanding not just your own emotions, but also the emotions of others. A wise person knows how to navigate tricky social situations, resolve conflicts, and build strong relationships. For instance, in a disagreement, a knowledgeable person might have all the facts and figures to back up their argument, but a wise person knows how to handle the situation with empathy, diffusing tension, and finding a solution that works for everyone. Think about family dynamics. In every family, there's usually that one person everyone turns to for advice, not necessarily because they're the most knowledgeable, but because they have the wisdom to see the big picture. They're the ones who understand both sides of a conflict, know how to offer advice without being pushy, and have the ability to calm everyone down and find a peaceful resolution. Wisdom also comes from thinking long-term. A knowledgeable person might make a quick decision that gets immediate results, but a wise person considers the future. This applies to everything from personal finances to global issues. For example, when investing money, a knowledgeable person might look for the quickest return, but a wise person considers how their investments will grow over time, how much risk they can tolerate, and how those investments fit into their long-term goals. So, in this age of information, where everyone seems to have all the answers at their fingertips, it's more important than ever to strive for wisdom, not just knowledge. It's about taking the time to think critically, reflect on your experiences, listen to others, and approach life with empathy and long-term thinking. The internet can give us facts, but wisdom is something we have to cultivate ourselves through thoughtful reflection and life experience. In the end, knowledge can make us smarter, but wisdom makes us better at living life. It's what helps us make good decisions, build meaningful relationships, and contribute to the world in a positive way. And in a world that's always changing and bombarding us with information, that's more important than ever.